what pisses me off is when I see that dad that's like on the sidelines, like overweight, like peaked in high school, screaming at his kids. That shit pisses me off because you're like, you're speaking a sermon, but show me a sermon.
Welcome to the Spartan Up podcast, hosted by Joe Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Race, and brought to you by Wild Health.
We are talking about overcoming obstacles. The same way we teach people to get over obstacles on the course, we will teach you here on the Spartan Up podcast to get over obstacles in your mind.
Get race ready with Wild Health, the official healthcare provider of Spartan. Sign up at wildhealth.com with the code SPARTAN10 to save 10%.
Think that the contract signature is the most important part of a contract? Think again. IntelliAgree automates the most costly, painful parts of the contracting process, trusted by companies like Spartan to take their business to the finish line. Visit IntelliAgree.com to schedule your free demo today.
Joe Sena, CEO and founder of Spartan and the Spartan Up podcast. I've got an incredible guest here today, RJ, founder of Ultra Habits. Yes, it's a podcast, but it's really a mindset. It's a lifestyle. Fortunately for RJ, unlike many of us, he was born with perfect habits, perfect rituals in his life. And so everything's been perfect, and we can learn from him. Is that true, RJ?
Yeah, you're lucky I live in Australia now, and I picked up sarcasm because I would have totally bought that and ran with that. So yeah, I was angelic when I reached the earth, and I've been angelic ever since.
You didn't the last time we talked, weren't you in a trunk? Weren't you stuffed in a trunk somewhere?
Dude, every time we've spoken, there's been a disaster. So the first time I was in an airport in a parking garage, the second time my lights went out in my office, and believe it or not, right before this conversation, I got locked out of my office. But our office gets broken into so much by junkies. There's like a way you can just basically open the door. So I literally made it in the office 10 minutes before our conversation now. I don't know what it is.
I love it. So is this a sign from the universe that maybe you should stay away from me?
No, you know what I mean? I think what it is the universe wants me to work to talk to you. Like, it's making me appreciate the fact that you and I are rapping, right? So, yeah, I guess it's how you frame it.
What's the story with habits? Like I guess we could pick up good habits or bad habits, and yeah, and then I'll ask another question related to that because that got my mind going. But what's the story with habits?
Yeah, so we all serve the master of habits, right? Like, people don't realize it, irrespective of whether they're good, bad, ugly. For me, for many years, I was serving habits that were killing me. I was a drug addict, I was an alcoholic, and my dedication to my process was taking me to an early grave. I had to go through a transformation process. And through that process, I started to orientate myself to better habits. So, like I tell everyone, we're always serving habits. Habits are our master. We need to choose which master we're serving, the good or the bad.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, you must be a tiny, tiny little statistic regarding folks that came out of that. Like, how did you unwind that?
Yeah. So I grew up in the U.S. and my habits and my behaviors and my values were so bad. I ultimately lost my right to stay in the U.S. and had to come to Australia where I was born. When I was leaving, I was with my dad at the airport in San Francisco, and I said to him, Dad, I'm going to come to Australia. I'm going to go to Australia and I'm going to change my life. Like, I'm going to start over, new sheet, no rap sheet. And within 2 years, I was in jails and institutions here. And I think, you fast forward that story, I was staying in an apartment. It was stink, like there's alcohol everywhere, and, I was 28, 27 years old. And I just had this moment of clarity. My shoulders dropped. I kind of looked in the air and I just realized I couldn't live like that anymore. And it was at that moment that the obsession to use or drink just left. But I also needed to do something about it. And that's when I started to focus on personal transformation. And that was the journey. That was a journey that started about 13 years ago.
It's amazing. We should Spartan is so powerful globally for folks looking for a change. I suspect we're successful at creating change because we put people through a really hard thing, and change requires a really hard thing. We should group together. I mean, this week I've probably spoken to a half a dozen folks that provide a service like you provide, right? Helping others make that needed change and changing their habits. We should have like a gathering of folks that do this.
Yeah. So, you brought up a really important point there, that the process of getting sober was a crucible. It was so hard. It was like having my face ripped off. Like, it was transformative. And that process at the time, which I didn't know, it was changing my values, my operating system. Like, I was becoming a new person. And it was such a transformative experience getting sober that I started to purposefully create crucibles throughout my life. So every year, every 2 years, I'm creating new crucibles that are so difficult. They force you to transform. And that's the thing. People don't do habits well because they're not connecting it to character transformation, identity transformation. They're just doing shit because they're inspired. They listen to Joe Sena. I'm going to get off the couch. And then next week, it's cold and they don't get out of bed. It's because they haven't really understood how that's going to change the person they are into the person they want to become.
It's really interesting you say that. Look, we're all constantly learning, right? And I've written books about this. I give speeches about it. But every time I talk to somebody as entrenched in the game as you are, I learn and I get clarity around the stuff I think I'm teaching, right? So, when I think about my son, for example, my oldest son, he's now getting ready for college, and a door opened for him to get into a really good university. And then all of a sudden, I could see a light bulb went off in our house with our other kids, like, oh, that's why Dad makes us study Mandarin every day. Oh, that's why Dad makes us work out and shame on me, I never made the connection you're talking about with the kids saying, like, here's the goal. Here's what we're working towards, right? Here's the thing we're after. And that's why we're going to do all this work for 10 plus years. Because if you don't have that, well, I'll tell you about my story. When I'm going through COVID with this business, like, I wanted to quit 500 times and I don't quit, right? Like, that's my mantra, that's my image, that's my brand. I don't quit. And I want to quit. And I'm fighting it because as unbreakable as we talk about, everybody has a breaking point. And I reflect on, like, wait a minute, what's my thing? What's our thing? We want to change 100 million lives. If I quit, I can't change anymore. Like, I can't do the thing, right? So if I didn't have that thing to look up to hang on to like keep me in the game, I'd probably get out of the game.
Yeah. You're big on True North. I wrote an article recently on Forbes and quoted you. Like, the thing is our habits serve who we want to be. And you get clear on who you want to be and you double down on that, your habits will become a servant to that. The problem is people are serving individual activities without really understanding the strategy. And I think that's why people fall off. And, I'm a 12-stepper, like Charlie Engle, right? Like, we went through 12 steps. And that process is wholesale transformation. And what I learned through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous is that could be replicated for anyone, for anything. But as you say, we have to embark on this path of purposeful suffering. But we need to know what the purpose is.
We need to know what the purpose is. I like it. I don't know if you ever read Will It Make the Boat Go Faster?
No.
But, you'll like this because it ties to your country. I'm pretty sure UK rowing team, men's rowing team, 8-man team, going into the Olympics, 18 months to train. The boat to beat is the Australians. Right. And there's no chance. They're just not fast enough. Yeah. And the coach, the UK rowing coach, says to his team, listen, we're going to have a policy. Every single day, with every single decision we make, we're going to ask ourselves, will it make the boat go faster? And so I got chills saying, I've said this 5,000 times. I just got chills. And because we all get so excited. Think about a movie we've seen or a book we've read where a team or an individual gets that dug in to that purpose, that goal. And so, like, imagine that week. They had a great week. They trained really hard. And the guy said, hey, let's go hang out with the girls Friday night. We crushed it this week. And the coach said, will it make the boat go faster? And the answer is no, it won't make the boat go faster. We're not going to hang out with the girls. Hey, guys, we had a great day today. Let's go grab some ice cream after. Will it make the boat go faster? No, we're not grabbing ice cream. And my thing is, like, yeah, you could smell the roses. Yeah, we could slow it down a bit. We could take the vice grip off, but I don't know. Do you get the gold medal then? I don't think so.
Man, that video you shot the other day about your marriage, I sent to my wife, Tilly, the one around Courtney, and my wife gets it. Like, I don't watch TV. I don't do shit. Like, I am completely on all the time, and I'm a pain in the ass. Like, and I know she related to that video because I'm like you. Like, I'm 100% committed to the relationship, but everything I do has to have some connection to purpose. So I'm intense. Like, being around me is intense, and I'm sure you're the same way. But, I asked you once in an interview, and this is stuck by me as I'm raising little kids. We were talking about how you push your kids, and you're like, yeah, it's hard. You cop slack. You're the hard ass. But what's the alternative? Like, are we willing to not do that because of, how we're perceived, or, we're hard asses, or people are making this we talked about how you were making kids walk around the block with kettlebells and shit like that, right? Like, I get it, because someone has to, because particularly with kids, we're raising marshmallows these days.
I'm the kids were just we moved to Orlando. I moved my family down to Orlando, which is a whole other discussion, which is the land, at least visually from outside, of marshmallows. But we happen to find this amazing school and this amazing development where I'm sitting right now, and an amazing wrestling program for the boys, and now amazing soccer program for the girls. But the hurricane came through, and the school was pretty much unscathed. I mean, there's a couple of issues, and I don't run the school, so I don't know beneath the surface what's going on. But they took a few days off. They got to clean things up, makes sense. But the wrestling room is fine. And the kids want to wrestle, and the coach wants to wrestle. And, 1 day went by, and 2 days went by. We're on day 5 now, and we couldn't wrestle. And the sky is blue, and I get it. There's been mass destruction in parts of Florida, but, like, we got to get back in the room, right? Or put us on a bus, and we'll go clean up the beaches or something. We got to be doing something. We can't just sit around, right? But I'm sure there's, like, legal reasons and this nonsense and that nonsense, and so we are raising marshmallows because I don't know. I don't want to be one of those guys that says it's not like it used to be, because you and I, we didn't grow up in the 50s, but we probably saw some TV shows, or we got a feeling of what the 50s must have been like. But with every passing generation, it just gets softer and softer and softer. So we got to get another group. We got to get one group, me, you, a whole bunch of people that have interest in trying to help folks, right? Do a roundtable. We got to have another group of the wives who want to leave us because we're so intense and so crazy. And that could be like Wives Anonymous. I don't know, we'll come up with something. They could just sit around and say, oh my God, don't you hate it when he wakes up? Don't you hate it when he turns the lights on? Don't you hate it when he never wants to go and just hold hands and walk on the beach? Don't you hate it?
Yeah. And you'll dig this. So I'm a Freemason, and we opened up the lodge to the wives once, and they, they're thinking we're sacrificing goats and virgins and shit, right? So they come to the lodge, and they had some wine, and one of the older wives of one of the masters of the lodge asked the wives if they wanted to actually go into the lodge to see where the ceremonies are conducted, and they all bolted in there because night on night they're wondering, what are these guys actually doing. And, people are Googling Freemasonry. They got their ideas about what's going on. And, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think, that's kind of how I'm geared, and that's how she knows me. And I'm sure she appreciates that because she knows I don't drink. I don't drink at all. I don't do anything. Like, I don't go out. I don't abandon the family on boys' nights. And, that's just not me. But, it's pedal to the metal all the time.
Yeah. Do you do some of the things I do? Like at 5 a.m., do you turn on AC/DC and just wake everybody up in the house?
I'm not as crazy and bold as you, so I literally the night before, everything is placed strategically in my house so I can literally exit like a ninja because I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And if I wake that 2-year-old up, I'm getting my ass kicked and I'm not getting out that house, right? So I'm the opposite to you probably in that way because my kids are much younger.
Does having a drink or two at night help you sleep better? I'm Dr. Matt Dawson with Wild Health, Spartan's official healthcare partner. That question isn't as straightforward as it seems. Some alcohol may make you fall asleep more quickly, but it destroys your sleep architecture. More nighttime awakenings, less deep sleep. It suppresses REM sleep, which is critical for memory and learning. And in general, alcohol and sleep just don't mix. A lot of us drink though, so how do we minimize those downsides? It may seem counterintuitive, but if you're gonna have a drink, it may be better to drink before you eat instead of after. We all drink for a reason. We like the way it makes us feel. So if you drink on an empty stomach before dinner, you're gonna have more of that feeling, but you're gonna metabolize it more quickly and it's gonna be out of your system by the time you sleep. Whereas the same drink afterwards, 2 hours later, on a full stomach is gonna slowly trickle in and affect your sleep all night, and you get less of the feeling and the effect that you want. So what kind of drinks matter? Obviously, non-alcoholic would be great, but that's not what we're talking about. If you want to figure out what drinks affect you negatively less, maybe try some experimentation. Maybe wear a sleep tracker and see. Red wine negatively affects some people more than white wine does. Spirits may affect you more or less negatively, and the same for beer, which has gluten and other things. If you still want to drink, but want to conserve as much of that precious resource of quality sleep as you can, maybe take these tips and then do some self-experimentation, wear a sleep tracker, and see how you can still have the benefits and still get a great night's sleep as well.
What is IntelliAgree and how will it help you run your business? IntelliAgree is an end-to-end contract lifecycle management platform powered by machine learning and AI. It speeds up the contract negotiation process by extracting and analyzing the clauses that matter most to you. You can create contracts quickly and route them to the right people at the right time with IntelliAgree's contract creation wizard and automated approval workflows. Choose from an impressive library of add-ons, extensions, and integrations to connect IntelliAgree with your everyday tools, like Salesforce and Microsoft Word. You can even set automatic reminders to stay ahead of crucial deadlines. IntelliAgree is also the official CLM sponsor of Spartan, and to date has successfully closed out millions of waivers and agreements with Spartan alone. Visit IntelliAgree.com for your free demo today.
For somebody that wants to change their habits, it probably starts the night before. Like it's not in the moment, right? You're planning.
Man, everything is meticulously planned. My clothes are laid out. Everything's by the door. My keys, my bottle of hot water is boiled the night before. I don't have to think when I leave the house. I leave the house in my pajamas to the office, and I just pick up bags as I go because I don't want to have to think that early, nor do I want to have to wake everyone up in the house. So you're right. Like, you have to prepare, and that preparation is the night before you go to bed, instead of watching TV and Netflix and all that shit.
But RJ,
Yeah.
we're making popcorn. Let's just sit and watch a movie. I get it every night.
It's hard, right? And I think you're touching on something important, particularly for those of us that are married, right? Like, creating that time, doing the needful thing. Like, yesterday my wife was watching a reality TV show about couples that were matched with other, like, my biggest nightmare. And I'm sitting there watching it, then I get caught up in it too, right? And I'm like looking at her, and I know though I have to turn off screens by a certain time or I'm not going to sleep properly, right? But I also have to be intentional about my marriage as well, right? So there's a real, like, you have to approach it with some wisdom, right?
Hey, let's go down a rabbit hole for a second.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. Let's do it.
This is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
funny one. Last night, I start screaming. I start screaming about 8:45 p.m. Get to bed, get to, and the kids don't have to go to school because again, the school,
Yeah.
I can't believe it, was shut down today, and so my kids, two kids are watching TV. My other kid's sleeping at his friend's house. My daughter, with one of those towel turbans on, is in bed in my bed with my wife, and they're watching some horror film. And it's 8:45, and I'm running around like a nutcase. Time to go to bed. Lights out. Get to bed. We're done, right? And it doesn't matter what I say. No one's moving. No one's doing anything. And finally, after like a half hour, I finally get the lights off. I got my daughter out of my bed. I got the other kids brushing their teeth. And I get into my bed. This is a really funny one. And it's kind of nice because it's been warmed up by my daughter. And I was thinking for a minute, like, number one, I can't ever tell anybody in the Spartan universe that I enjoy this moment that somebody warmed up my bed. And then I heard about in the UK, I heard they actually have bed warmers. You could hire somebody that goes into your bed before you get there and warm things up. And I thought, that is so ridiculous. But for last night, for a moment, I was like, this is pretty nice, actually. But you could see how I could get into a bad habit. Next thing you know, I'm ordering a bed warmer, right?
I don't even know how that job exists. So, like, to me, that the cost of going to warm someone's bed and getting there, like, how do you even charge for that? But I think that brings up, yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, I'm the same. I get home from work and I've got a 2 and 5-year-old, and like, as soon as I walk through that door, I'm like busting everyone's guts to clean up. Like,
Right.
like I'm lining them up. They know as soon as I walk through the door, dad's going off if everything isn't cleaned up and put away properly, because we have a system, right? And so, I mean, I'm under no illusion that my dedication to process and habits drives people nuts, right? It does, and I have to temper it, I have to manage it, but it is what it is. I am who I am,
You'd agree. I've met a lot of people in my life, like from Spartan and from the podcast. I mean, I've met Wall Street. I've met a lot of people. I can't think of meeting one person in 53 years on this planet that has said to me, gee, I wish I didn't work as hard. I wish I didn't, create better habit. Like, all I've heard is, I wish I would have worked harder. I wish I would have been more organized. I wish I would have went after it. I could have got a gold medal. Like, so I don't think you and I and people that are crazy like us should like regret the way we live. I don't think we should. What do you think?
No, you're right. I think I've had to become aware that my path isn't the path for everyone, right? Now, and that's okay. But when it comes to people like my kids, well, that's different. And I lead from the front. Like, I'm a runner. So what I know is running. My 5-year-old is already a trail runner. He's racing 10-year-olds, right? Like, he hits the trails with me every Saturday and Sunday. He didn't like running when he started. He used to whinge and complain, and now he's pushing me to do it. That's what I wanted. For me, I'm curating their identity. I'm curating their identity.
That's a great sentence. I wish I had that sentence when I was using the kid's electric collar like you're using now. I wish I had that sentence. Right?
Well, that's
Right?
that's what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
basically curating the way they see themselves by the activities they engage in, because we know that change and transformation happens through action, not theory. But we as parents and dads particularly need to lead from the front. So what pisses me off is when I see that dad that's like on the sidelines, like overweight, like peaked in high school, screaming at his kids. That shit pisses me off. Because you're like, you're speaking a sermon, but show me a sermon. Like lead from the front.
No, there's no doubt about it. I get that. I get that. Everyone. Yeah. I just
You know what I mean?
I just got picked on social media. I saw somebody made a comment, Joe, I don't see you at races anymore. And I used to be very prevalent at all the events, and so I'm like, all right, I guess I got to juggle everything. I got to get yelled at by my wife. I got to get yelled at by the customers. I got to race more. I got to get yelled at by my kids. I got to get yelled at by everybody. That's just the deal. So, questions. We want to change some habits.
Yeah.
We're telling everybody listening they've got to have a purpose, which is hard to do, by the way, figuring out your true north, your purpose. But you got to get something on paper, right, that you're passionate about.
Yeah. I
Who you want
think
to be.
I think the key is to start to use power as an example. So, like, what happened for me was when two critical things happened when I decided to get sober. One, a person helped me. So there was someone that could mentor me that was a really good example of a person I kind of wanted to be like, who was sober. And then there was a business person who was a young person at the time, who's a high net worth individual here in Australia, who saw something in me and basically said to me, I can mentor you from being a drug dealer, addict, as you were, to someone that could be successful in business. So I was provided with an opportunity to change not only my character, but how I saw myself through business and through getting sober. So I think the first thing we can do is look to those around us or people that we don't even know is illustrative examples as to who we want to be. And this is where the imagination as humans serves us. We need to be able to see ourselves at the end. We need to be able to see ourselves as the person we want to be. And we have to then double down and fall in love with that image. Like, that's critical, particularly with transformation. Not shifting little habits here and there, but I'm talking about like really trying to transform who we are. We really have to fall in love with an ideal self, like an idealized state of self. And when we do that, we can then commit to the process to get there much easier.
So try to figure out the true north, which may be a model, somebody that you're trying to model yourself after, and then work backwards from there. Lay out what are the things you need to do all day, every day, to achieve that, and then I would imagine the last thing is stick to it.
Correct. So what will happen is the process, as you know, will become our God. That's it. The process is God. It's as simple and complex as that. And we follow it. If we give ourselves time and we don't bail or abandon ourselves, we'll start to see change, but others will notice that change. Our environment will start to give us positive feedback. People within that environment. Hey, man. Hey, RJ, you're really looking fit, or you're really, blah blah blah, right? Like things will happen. We'll start to help us strengthen our resolve because we'll notice the change. Others will notice that change, and then we'll start to move closer and even double down further on the path. The problem is most people abandon the path before the miracle, before the change. And so there is a period when we embark on new habits that we have to use willpower. But it moves over time from something we're doing to who we are. Problem is most people don't allow themselves that period of time from something they're doing to it then becoming who they are. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand it completely. And I give talks on it in slightly different words. And I think about, how did I make it something I am as opposed to something I just want to do sometimes. Like I became a professional about it as opposed to just like dabbling in it, right? And I remember as a kid, my grandfather saying to my dad, just far enough away that I could barely hear him, but I heard him. I was doing landscaping work for my father. My grandfather comes over. They're talking 20 feet away, and he says, man, that kid's a hard worker, huh? And I heard it. And so that was the beginning of how I was going to define myself.
Yeah.
And so I started working hard, and I looked in the mirror and saw working hard, and then other people complimented me on work, and it just became my thing. That's why I became that guy, right? And then I figured out later, like, oh, I got to shout it from the root. The more I say it, the more I'll stick to it, because I don't want to be a fraud, right?
You're using public pressure.
Yeah.
and you use that pressure, that external pressure, to fortify who you are. And you know this better than most because, you know, I've heard you say it before, you're always at the kind of the end of your energy bar, right? And I think it is easy to quit. And, you know, that whole situation when the events went to shit and, you know, you had the whole COVID meltdown, like, you know, yeah, but Joe can't quit. And that's where the benefit of who and how you're seen and how you see yourself enables you to stick to it. And yeah, I'm with you. Like that accountability of telling people shit, that's great. It works.
I got another one. I was just at Fort Bragg military base, and I was given a speech. Just before I got up on stage, I have this speech. I'm going to post something on Instagram here in the next few days about it. But basically, I talk about the journey to success, which is pretty much everything we're talking about here. It starts with knowing your purpose. It goes right towards commitment, managing your time. Go down the list. And I said to myself, after doing this for so many years, and I think you'll agree with me, success provides clues, they say. It's a roadmap. And whether you're having a child, building a business, unwinding a life where you're addicted to drugs, whatever it is that you're taking on that's hard, you literally go down the same exact road. You hit the same exact speed bumps. There's the same water, same water stops along the way. And if you understand that road and the speed bumps and the obstacles, well, then when you get to them, you're like, oh, I know where I am. And this military guy says, before I get on stage, this colonel, he says to me, Colonel Nye, who's been on the podcast with me, he says, Joe, you know who the best navigators are, the best folks that can read maps? And I said, no, who? He goes, the ones who've already been on that piece of land. If they've already been there, they're the best at reading the map. And so I'm like, oh, that's right. That's why this journey, this map that I talk about has been so successful. So when I was going to quit, when my mind was like blinking, flashing red, and sirens were going off in my head, and it was like, man, you can't take another day of this, right? Customers screaming, money problems, 45 countries shut down. I was able to say, oh, I know where I am on the map. This is where the naysayers show up, and they start kicking me in the teeth, right? And as long as you know, oh, and then I got to dig my way out. I know where I am. As long as you know that, it doesn't catch you by surprise, and maybe you don't give up.
I think as well.
Sorry, one more thing. I would imagine with you, and like if you had a map, if somebody who's addicted had a map and knew the entire journey and believed it, then maybe when they hit those moments in the valley of death, they'd say, wait, I know where I am. This is not unique to me. Everybody goes through this.
And that's actually what we were provided in 12 steps, right? Like, because I can talk to, let's say, our friend Charlie Engel, who's 30 years sober, and be like, Charlie's a mentor or like a sponsor. You have a collective wisdom in the room of people that have been through and been at where you're at. And you learn to trust the collective wisdom more than you trust yourself sometimes. Because when you're in the fog, it skews your perception. You start to believe different realities and you lose your true north. Your compass gets haywire. But when you have the collective community and those that have walked the path before you, that's the salvation. And that's why I think it's so important for anyone looking to transform habits or change. They have to get part of a community. Have to. Because that community fortifies your resolve. It provides the support. Now, the problem is most people are joined in communities that are shit. Communities that aren't serving them, with people that aren't serving them. And you've got the Spartan community. That's a community. Like if someone wants to change, you go into a Spartan race and you get yourself involved in the community. You now have illustrative examples of people that have gone before you. And you know what roadblocks you might hit. You have examples of people that have gotten through those roadblocks. And ultimately what happens, you build those examples to yourself. So when you're going through that difficult time with business, you would have drawn on your collective experience to know that you've been through this shit before. and you
Yeah, and
can get through it.
And if I hadn't, then there would be folks around me that say, no, this is just part of the deal.
Yeah.
For those people listening or watching, to really put a fine point on it, I was lost I was in a race, 400-mile race once with three partners of mine. We were in like 20 hours straight of rain. It just rained, and we were lost for the entire 20 hours. We made a misstep, and the human brain won't allow you to turn around because you're like, no, I think it's a little further, because you don't want to waste that energy and actually go back. And so it went from being 15 minutes in the wrong direction to being 20 hours in the wrong direction in the rain. And at one point, our navigator looked down at his compass, you're going to love this, and said, oh, we must be on magnetic rock. The compass is not giving me the right reading, which is, I think, what you were just saying. Like if you don't have people around you, your brain just starts to play games with you.
Yeah.
We're not on magnetic rock. We're just idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, and an ultra is a very good example of that. I mean, when you get lost in an ultra, your energy, if you panic, you can lose your energy within a matter of minutes, right? Like, because you start to panic, you don't know where you're going. I'm like a serial get lost guy because I'm not a natural orienteer. I'm fast. And the problem is I run fast, I miss turns and shit, and I'm always that guy that gets lost. And, in an ultra, when you're lost and you're in the middle of nowhere, it's panic mode for most. And you're 100% right. You start to kind of, and then you start to get angry. You start to like, why am I doing this? And I mean, it's a great example. Yeah, it's a great example.
Let's go down another rabbit hole just for fun. I got a 50-miler I put on in Vermont. We've been putting on forever. I forget. I can't even think of the name anymore because it's been like 15 years of putting it on. But it's under our peak Bloodroot. There we go. The Bloodroot Ultra. Bloodroot because it goes up and over this just hell of a hill that's got nettles and mud, and it is a nightmare. It's called the Bloodroot Ultra. Anyway, one year Goggins was coming out to run along with a bunch of runners, and I went out 5 days early with tape, marking tape, and I was marking the trail, and I'm running. I'm in great shape, and I'm marking the trail. Sure enough, I got lost, but I don't think I'm really lost, and so I continue to mark the trail. Well, I marked the trail for like an extra 9 miles in the wrong direction, right? I finally figured out, I backtrack all my markings, and I figure out exactly where I made the mistake. And I think to myself, I'm not going to go back and take all those ribbons. I'll come back after the race. I'm not going to do it now. I've already been out here lost all day. When we take the flagging down, I'll come back. But what I will do is for the 100 yards of where I made the mistake, I'll pull that flagging down so nobody goes the way I went. And I continue on, and I do it the right way. Anyway, race goes off 3 or 4 days later. Goggins is in front. Then we don't see him anymore. He found my flagging somehow. He literally went the same way I went. And I guess he ran into a bear. And it was a whole nightmare. I don't know why I was telling that story.
Did he really run into a bear?
Yes.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Crazy story. But anyway, let's leave it with three takeaways for everybody. I love talking to you. We could literally do a podcast every week if you want. Whether you're in a trunk, whether you're locked out of your office, whether you're in your pajamas early in the morning, we could always talk. I love it.
Yeah.
Three takeaways for everybody.
Yeah. Move your body. Like, so for me, I build my day around my exercise. I don't always get to do my exercise early mornings because, like today, you and I were speaking early, but I'll exercise today. Cold. Use the cold. Plunge pools, cold water. In the morning, in particular, use the cold. Have a hot shower at night happy. Use the cold in the morning. And I think journal, reflect. So for me, I use the Ryan Holiday's the Stoic Journal. Reflect on how I'm going to conduct myself in the day. For a person like me, I have to move out of my head onto paper, into action. So reflect, journal, and live a life of introspection. So yeah, I think those three things, I'd leave it there.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks for doing this. I'm glad you got me uncomfortable today. You got me talking. This is fun.
Yeah, I always love talking to you, Joe.
Maximize energy, optimize nutrition, and improve performance with Wild Health. Personalized precision healthcare built for Spartans. You'll get a personalized health plan based on your DNA and biometrics and the support of a team of health experts. Sign up at wildhealth.com with the code Spartan10 to save 10%. Thanks for listening to this episode of Spartan Up Podcast.